I'm really glad T and Jamar got that contract done because there was only so many different ways we could approach that. When are they going to get it done? Should they get it done? What if they took the money for T and used it on defense? What if they did? Oh, it was exhausting. Damn. So I'm glad they put that behind them. And then we had to turn the chapter towards Trey Hendrickson and sit here and be like, well, when are they going to get it done? What if they use that money and help fix the rest of the defense? Or what if they did that? Just get the deal done. But they haven't got a deal done. It's been actually kind of quiet on the Bengals front. Luckily, the Reds have taken over a lot of the talking points when it comes to sports in Cincinnati at this point. But good old Katie Blackburn had some interesting comments when asked about the ongoing negotiations with Trey Hendrickson. For those watching on YouTube, we'll pop it up. Here's what she had to say. So Katie Blackburn said this regarding the negotiations with Trey Hendrickson, saying he should be happy at certain rates that maybe he doesn't think he'd be happy at. I think some of it is on him to be happy at some point, and if he's not, that's what holds it up sometimes. We have all the respect in the world for him. He's been a great player. We're happy to have him, and so maybe we'll find a way to get something to work. Again, the EVP, Katie Blackburn for the Bengals on Trey Hendrickson's contract status. And I see a lot of people, and Casey, it sounds like you're one of those that are upset with these comments. I have to say, based on the conversations we've had on this show, I think we're all pretty realistic of acknowledging how super talented he is right now, while acknowledging the holdup in the negotiations being where he is at age-wise, and to give him a big contract like what we've seen, obviously, when you look at Crosby with the Raiders or you look at Myles Garrett with the Browns. We're hearing about what Micah Parsons is going to be going after, but the thing is, like, those guys are relatively, still, from an age perspective, in fair play to be able to give a deal like that too. I understand the holdup why the Bengals don't want to marry Trey Hendrickson long term, but also acknowledging the importance of, but we need him right now though. Like, that's the problem that they're juggling at this point. If I've reread that 100 times, I can't find where she said something that's wrong. I'm trying to figure out why so many people are upset about it. I don't think she's wrong. At a certain point, considering where they're at in negotiations, at a certain point, he does need to just be happy with what they're offering at a certain point, especially considering he was happy enough to accept the negotiation a year and a half ago that put him in this position to not be happy with what he's being paid to begin with. I get why people are upset, because people just want to hear out of her mouth that, hey, we're going to do whatever, like what we heard with Jamar Chase. We're bending over backwards to get it done. Fans want to hear that when it comes, obviously, to Hendrickson. I just don't think that they are willing to bend over backwards to get it done. They acknowledge how important he is to the team this season, also while acknowledging not wanting to wrap up a lot of big dollars into him long term just because of where he's at age-wise. It's a tough spot for them to be in. I don't feel bad for him, but at the same time, I might be in the minority here. I don't have a problem with what she said. I think she's pretty spot on. Maybe the problem is you just don't say it, I guess, but I don't think anything that she said was wrong. Where are you guys with this Katie Blackburn statement?
I don't necessarily disagree with a lot of the words, right? I think the bulk of where the anger comes in is what you said there at the end. Maybe you don't say it during the middle of what is a heated negotiation with a lot of lights on it, national media paying attention to this one for sure. So maybe you don't say it because, I've obviously been live here since 10, but if I had to guess, I would imagine this has been on every, ESPN show so far this morning. They talked about, Jamar and T every single day, and now I'm sure they're talking about Trey Hendrickson. So for that alone, I think fans are certainly warranted a little bit of frustration here. And the other bulk of my frustration with this comes into what was the plan with Trey Hendrickson this offseason, right? So you get him in the building, negotiations aren't going where you want him to go. So you grant him a trade request, and he's allowed to go search for his market value. Well, you're not getting the trade return that you were expecting to get, so you basically pull that trade request, say that's not going to happen. But now he knows his market value, so you have to give it to him. Is the plan now to just not give him market value? Then why'd you let him seek the trade request if you were going to play him on 16 and a half the entire time? I think the frustration with this comes in with it seems like the Bengals have no plan. And they're just trying to figure this out, as they go with Trey Hendrickson and keeping their fingers crossed that they can get something done and he'll be out there week 1. And if not, then we'll call the bluff on a holdout. I don't think that's a good way to manage a team. Does that get you Trey Hendrickson for maybe 15 games on $16 million, which is probably the best case scenario? Yeah, it might. That doesn't mean you ran the team well this offseason. So I think the frustration comes in, after we extend Jamar, after we re-sign T. Maybe this team's changing. Maybe we're going to, put our foot on the gas here and become legitimate contenders over the next couple of years. And we're seeing these quotes come out and negotiations stall, and maybe not. maybe, that's an outlier more than a difference in trend.
It's like when you were in school and somebody, a teacher gives you a big project, right? And you've got about a month to finish the project. And in the back of your mind, you're like, oh, okay, that's great. I have a month to finish this. We'll put it in the backpack. I'll throw that in the locker, and we won't see that for another 3.5 weeks. It's kind of like how the Bengals are negotiating their way through this Trey Hendrickson ordeal because, they know he's under contract. They know he can't leave. They gave him a chance to leave. Nobody took it, and they're like, you know what? I'm just going to sit here, and we're just gonna deal with this at a later date. And if that's the day before the season starts, that's the day before the season starts. I agree with Jacob. It's probably not the best way to run a franchise, but I also agree with Justin Kinner and the fact that I don't think that it's really a major problem that they don't want to give Trey Hendrickson $32 million or whatever he's asking for a year. I don't fault them for not wanting to pay that. His agent made the bad move. And we're all here suffering because of it. And as this distraction continues, that's the only thing I would have to worry about heading into this season because I don't want to deal with any noise before week 1. I want all noise to be canceled out. That's my dream. And I'd imagine that's going to be their dream as well. And I imagine this deal still gets done. Like everything that I've heard so far, I know that it's not ideal and nobody thinks very highly of the Bengals front office, and that's fine. I don't think they're a well-run organization either. But I do think that they know they have the cards. They hold the cards. If you think that Trey Hendrickson is going to sit out an entire season, maybe then Trey would hold the cards. But I really don't believe that's going to be the case. And I think it's who's going to bet on which. And we don't know really what he's asking for, right? We don't know the exact number of what he's asking.
It's over 30.
If it's market value, if it's over $30 million.
You just keep saying market value, what I would deserve to be paid. So I guess that's up for interpretation. But I assume the league leader in sacks in the last year, the only guy with that many sacks in the last 2 years, I would imagine that he believes he's at the top of the market.
Yeah. This isn't a situation like it's like we're trying to bring him back. He's here. We have him. He's going to play. It's unfortunate that he wants so much money that that the front office is unwilling to negotiate. I hope at some point there's going to be a common ground they find. But the longer this goes on, the more I get annoyed because it all started with his agent. I mean, his agent messed up big time. He played his tail off. He's earned more money. It's unfortunate that he signed that extension. The Bengals did their job, got the deal done early, and now it's almost in a way they're being punished because they got that deal done so early. And I don't think that's exactly right either. I think both sides, in my opinion, are annoying at this point, and I just want the whole thing to end.
I think that's definitely the main takeaway at this point. The difference with this conversation and the Jamar and T conversation was nobody was on the Bengals front office side in the Jamar and T conversation. Two years ago, no one was on the front office side in the Joe Burrow conversation. Now we're entering this Trey Hendrickson conversation. And I do think this fan base is more split than they've been on any other conversation. When it comes to supporting the front office and being playing a little bit of hardball here. But I do think at some point that faith is going to come to an end. I mean, Trey Hendrickson has to play for the Bengals this year. You set yourself up throughout this offseason to where you don't have a choice. And I know what Elliott's saying in terms of not holding out, but we've also said, all offseason on this show how important it is to have a legitimate training camp. And if the difference, in training camp is $14 million in terms of a one-year bonus, the difference in having all your guys at training camp, and Zach Taylor already said we're quote-unquote done with free agency, or at least in terms of the guard position, not sure what else we'd add, but would you rather just sit on that cash or have all your guys at training camp? I think at some point, it's not my money, so it's easy to say, but fork over the $30 million, let them play 1 year, go balls to the wall and try to win a championship and, see what happens. Because that's what you did last year. You franchise tagged T. Higgins, you gave it your all, it didn't work out. This is investing something in the defense that you haven't really done all offseason to try to improve it and give yourself a chance to be playing in San Francisco in February. So I think you have to give yourself every opportunity to, have a normal offseason, have a normal training camp. And I think that comes with getting Trey Hendrickson done early. Whether that's the Bengals front office fault or not in this situation, they just have to get it done. Because ultimately last year we look back at it and we say that training camp and the contracts and everything along those lines cost us that game against the Patriots. And then you're sitting there in Week 18, and that game against the Patriots cost you a wild card spot. So I don't think we can play that game again, especially with how questionable this defense is going to be, even with Trey Hendrickson.
My issue right now, though, it seems like even if you gave him the $30 million, maybe that's still not even what he wants. Maybe he wants that multi-year deal, and he's still going to be unhappy, even if you fork over the $30 million. In which case, nothing's been solved, and you've lost $15 million on a player who's going to be disgruntled for the entirety of the season. I think Trey Hendrickson's a good player. I think he's one of the best defensive players in the National Football League. He's 30 years old. He just came off his best season. Usually, you don't eclipse your best season with another best season. That's the way I look at that. And if I'm the Cincinnati Bengals, I say, I know our defense is largely made up of Trey Hendrickson's sacks. That's why the Bengals defense even had a little bit of a hope, even it had a little bit of a chance last season. Saying that, do you want to lose $15 million on a guy that's A, probably not going to be happy, and B, coming off his very best season at age 30? That's what I would look at. But what Jacob said is 100% right. I don't want the distraction heading into camp.
This also is the exact opposite side of the Jamar and T conversation for another reason. They extended him early. They got the deal.
Yeah.
And now it's being held against them. Now they're, this cheap franchise, the same old bungles, because they won't extend Trey Hendrickson. They won't pay him what he's worth. What happened when they paid him way more than what he was worth when he was a free agent the first time? Now they're just reaping the rewards of being right, making a gamble, and winning. They're reaping those rewards over the last couple of years, and now they're the bad guy?
Yeah.
And over the last 2 years, we've said, oh, well, if they would have just got, Jamar done early or T done early, they're saving $10, $15 million on those contracts. Well, we're sitting here 2 years later. Would they not be looked at as the bad guy?
Yeah.
You got to give these guys raises. I mean, we see people restructure their contracts all the time to get raises and match themselves up with where they think they are in the system. But I haven't seen anyone give the Bengals credit for having Trey Hendrickson under contract this year for $16.5 million. I've seen a lot of people say that they're cheap for not paying him $30. But he's not a free agent.
Yeah.
They have him under contract, a contract that they've worked out that is incredibly team-friendly for the Cincinnati Bengals. That's not something that they do very often. So, as much as, they've handled things poorly over the last however many years with this core and this front office, is much maligned by this fan base, I think this is a situation that, in all honesty, they've handled very, very well.
Casey, I know you were down on the comments. You did not like the comments?
Much for the reasons that Jacob said. I don't think it's a good idea to even share, even if that's what you believe. I don't think it's a good thing to share that with the public at this moment when you're in the middle of negotiations. And the mindset that you have, if that's the mindset you have, I'm just kind of reading the tea leaves that they're probably just not close, right? And if that's the case, that's why I'm down. I don't think I have a problem with what she said. I just think it's a bad mindset to have with a negotiation with one of your best players. You're telling him that he should be happy at a certain number. I think that's up for him to decide. But I don't think that means that she's wrong in a sense, because we don't know what number she gave to him either. That we're speculating that it's not 30, but what if it is 30? What if it's he wants 35 or 37,
Yeah.
So we don't know all the numbers. It's just more, when I said I was going to be down, I'm more just down about this. I'm not mad. I'm down. I'm sad that it's come to this point, because I did think that maybe there was a chance that they could get all three done. I'm starting to think maybe we won't see that until the season starts. I think that we're going to see a Chris Jones situation.
I would assume Hendrickson holds out as long as possible for a multi-year deal, and then when that doesn't come, he gets some kind of raise on a one-year deal, and then they shake hands, at the trophy presentation at the parade, and he moves on after this season. So, that's kind of my guess for how this all shakes out. The latest I would say that this bleeds into the season is probably week 2. He sits out 2 games max.
Yeah.
I would, even if I'm a betting man, I would say he's out there week 1. I don't think it's, that crazy for the Bengals to even give him, a $10 million raise, pay him 26, which is still comfortably under 30, and have him get out there on the field. Maybe incentives for the last $5 million or so. I don't know how it would all work. Certainly up to them, up to the front office, up to Trey for what he's willing to play for. But if his options are sit out at $16.5 million, lose the whole contract, or play for 20 to 25, I'm certainly would imagine that a guy who's said all offseason all he wants is security for him and his family. I would imagine he takes $20+ million. So,
what's the likelihood? And Joe Burrow will not call a press conference or anything.
Yeah.
He doesn't do a lot of media hits that often, but if he does a pivot appearance or something like that with Clark or whoever, what's the likelihood that we hear Joe Burrow make a statement on this at some, not a statement, like a statement sounds like an official statement, but like, what's the likelihood that if he does do a media hit that we see him pick up where he left off from Media Row, kind of putting more public pressure on the Bengals to get this done? Or do you think with Burrow, like the fans, everyone wanted all three to get done, 4 if you count Gesicki or whatever, but is it just, all right, we at least got Jamar and T. We got Jamar and T done. Let's just be content with what we have at this point. Where do you see this kind of going as far as any comments being made from any other teammates or, fans seem to just be checked out a little bit on this?
I think that Super Bowl week media tour kind of skewed people's memory of Joe Burrow. I mean, before that week, before this offseason, he'd been on 2 podcasts, like, ever.
Yeah.
So I don't think he's going to go and do another appearance. I think the only way that he would, be on a bunch more media was if, we're still sitting here in April and T and Jamar aren't done. I think, he went 3 for 4. The guy that they didn't get done extension-wise is a guy who's under contract for 2025. So all things considered, I think this is a pretty big win on the extensions front from the Bengals this offseason. So I don't expect any more Joe Burrow media presence or pressure on this front office. Would it help? Maybe. We certainly don't know what it did with the Jamar and T extensions, though those 2 guys certainly sounded very, very appreciative towards Joe and what he did, and thought that it moved the needle for both of them. So maybe it would work, but I certainly don't know for sure, but I wouldn't hold your breath. I don't expect it.
I would say it's a 0.0% chance. He got what he wanted, or at least most of what he wanted.
Yeah.
By going on that media tour. I have a hard time believing he's going to go back out for a second time and say, I demand Trey Hendrickson be extended. Yeah. I don't think that's a conversation that's honestly even fair.
Fair enough. I tell you what, the biggest mistake Hendrickson made was not, getting the same representation that T and Jamar had, because this would have been done by now.
I will give the Blackburns and Bengals front office a little bit of credit. They did say in there that they're talking to Trey Hendrickson and his camp. That's good, because not every edge rusher on the market is having their team talk to them and their camp.
Yeah.
Micah Parsons, Jerry Jones only negotiating with Micah Parsons directly.
Yeah.
Will not talk to David Mulugeta, Micah Parsons' agent, famously. We've had some problems with Mulugeta in Cincinnati as well over the years. T. Higgins' original representation, Jesse Bates' representation before that. But now Dallas is learning what we've dealt with here, and it seems like Micah Parsons is as far from a sure thing as possible. But Jerry keeps maintaining that they're going to make him the highest paid non-quarterback in football, and he even said yesterday in a direct quote that he doesn't care how long it takes and if that costs him more money. He only cares about getting it right for the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, I saw that. That's I think Jerry Jones was like, can we just talk without your representation there, thinking he has he's going to sway him into getting the deal done. Wild.